This episode is brought to you by Deal. Managing a global team is complex. Deal makes it simpler with payroll, HR, IT, and compliance, all in one place. That's why over 35,000 businesses trust Deal to hire, pay, and manage teams worldwide. See how Deal works at deal.com/Adrian Tan to learn more. That's DEEL.com/ADRIANTAN. Deal, your forever people platform.
There is just no escape from the corporate prison that I had to really be my own CEO, CMO, CFO. And the concept of being a CEO, like something that I'm still grappling with. Like when people ask, so you're the founder, so you're the CEO, then I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, actually it's true. I am still don't have that mindset that I'm still trying to come to terms with it.
Hello, Jaslyin. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Adrian.
For people who are new to you, how do you usually introduce yourself?
Nowadays, I would say that I am a spiritually driven entrepreneur who is trying to empower other entrepreneurs, especially women, who is exploring fractional
Okay.
work.
Can you go a bit deeper and help us understand that? Firstly, what is your definition of fractional? I had someone who came onto the show. He shared his piece on that, but I'd love to hear from you. How do you define fractional?
So fractional to me is from the perspective of what we offer to the client. It's not in terms of how I land my time or how I'm behaving as an entrepreneur. Because to me, as a business owner, it's a full-time job. It's full-time. It's not so much of fractional, but fractional in that sense, we offer a fraction of our time to whoever is the client that we are serving, but permanently or hopefully on a project basis or retainer basis. So to me, that is the concept of fractional. But as an owner of my own business, I am completely committed. I'm not fractional.
And you, just like many others, have been in the corporate, I can't think of a better word than rat race lah. But you've been there. You
Yeah.
were in Citibank, JLL, very big brand names. Can you share with us some of your earlier journey and, of course, importantly, what motivated you to pursue this current path?
In my mid-20s, I was chasing the corporate ladder. I was trying hard to climb it. And being a bit short, it's harder for a shorter woman. It's harder, and an Asian woman is harder than men and of a different nationality and so on because of the environment, that corporate environment. But yet I enjoyed that challenge. I take it as a personal challenge to be able to climb the corporate ladder and then see how far I can get. But beyond just climbing it, I wanted to become a people manager. I have the vision that I wanted to grow my leadership skills and be able to nurture younger talent and reach a level where I'm able to command a team. Not because I like the authority, but I just wanted to see how I can help to influence people in that corporate setting. And then at the same time, I've always make it a point not to stay too long in a job for a good reason. I'm not one of those where I would just be happy to settle for a job and just do the same thing day in and day out for 5 years, and call it good. I like to move around, and so I move around consistently, 3 to 4 years kind of period. If I think that the culture is not so good for me anymore, or if I've reached my own personal checklist of what I want to do, my own personal corporate bucket list, then I'll move on. And then because I want to learn different things. So I would say that the whole entrepreneurial journey didn't really occur to me to be something I wanted to do permanently, honestly, till when I was like 2022. I started toying with the idea coming out of COVID. Honestly, I was a little burnt out. I mean, I started my the city job in 2020. It was fully remote, but yet I managed to thrive. I managed to build a team and connection, and I'm actually very proud of the team that I built. But then I was burnt out as well. because everybody was burnt out. Basically, there was there is just no escape from the corporate prison.
I just want to pause you there for a second because
Yeah,
I
yeah,
do
yeah.
have some younger audience, and there might be people who
Mm,
started work after COVID. So they don't really have a sense of what we
mm.
mean by the COVID burnout. Could you elaborate a little bit on that and maybe give one or two examples?
So imagine I didn't get to meet with any colleagues in person. Like we didn't get to do that at all. I started my first day in the office. I met with my hiring manager at that time, collected the laptop, say bye, and went back home. And we just stationed and set up my laptop remotely, all my onboarding. They were all on calls. I didn't get to meet with anybody face to face. And then we were supposed to already quickly settle into almost like a business as usual mode. And working remotely from home full time in a corporate environment also means that sometimes we just tend to work throughout. Like I'm just seated at this work desk. There's not even I can't even go outside, because we were all on lockdown. You can't even go outside to get a breather. Um, so that went on for about 2 years. So although I enjoy the work, I truly enjoyed it, and I do enjoy the virtual connection. As and when we can chat, we try to chat. Um, but it's just different without being able to meet face to face and interact in person, have that connection. And it's easy to get burnt out because then after dinner, there's nothing to do. You can't go out. You just continue to work.
I had the same experience as well during that period of time. In fact, I think most people that you speak with at a certain age bracket and position bracket, they probably go through the same thing. For me, I realized that in a
Mm,
way because I was working out from my dining table, I don't have a work desk,
mm.
and I often get chased away because need to set dinner ma. So
Yeah,
no choice, I get chased away.
yeah.
In looking back, actually, it's a good thing that I work at the dining table because
Mm,
come dinner time, I'm forced to shut down whether I like it or
yeah.
not. Yeah.
True,
So
true.
ultimately, well, did that manifest for a long time, or was that an easy push motivation for you to just look at and move on to something?
I was sitting on it for a while, also because I felt I wasn't ready, maybe mentally, and also I think technology wise, I felt like even though COVID forced us to move to the cloud and everything, and access of some of the tools, for example, like versus what we have now, I think still a little bit different. Take for example, if you want to talk about some of the Gen AI tools, where it makes designing from scratch a little bit easier without being a very skilled designer, being able to use Adobe Illustrator, for example. But now with all the AI tools, we can get started. We have low code platform. We can build our web pages a little easier. So that means the cost wise, it was a consideration for me as well. Like the financial of getting that business started was also a consideration. And then on the other hand, it's also I just wanted to spend a little bit more time to solidify my value proposition of my own business. I don't want to just rush and then go out there and say, hey, everybody, I'm doing this business. But then because I'm a marketeer, so a value prop is something that's very important to me. I need to be able to be comfortable and practice what I preach to clients, to my employer as well, right? Like, what is my value prop for my business versus other businesses out there that I want that are similar to mine. So that's one. And then the third one is actually my people, my team. Because I work with a very young team, and a lot of them actually join me on my corporate journey because they believe in my vision, or the vision that I sold to them, why they should join the company. And some of them joined as a contractor. Some of them even gave up full-time role in the SME just to join me on this journey to build what I wanted to build. And some of them they believe that, I can help them to get promoted. And I did make that commitment. So then I decided that these are the last things I want to check off the corporate bucket list before I take on that full-time venture of my own. And so I guess timing just works out. That's why I'm now very big into spirituality, because I think everything happens for a reason. Everything just fell into place towards 2024, 2023 till end, which then forced me to, it's like I've been a pool, going into my own
I want to elaborate a
retrenchment.
bit on that because everything fall into place is too easy of a shortcut lah, to jump from A to B. So I also want to paint across to our audience to understand both sides of the coins when it comes to actually pursuing their own thing. So let's run through the day. How do you actually prep yourself? Of course, you got your people and all that, but that's on them. We're not going to talk about them. We're going to talk about you today. So what are some of the things that you have to check off to make sure it's done before you throw your letter? And what's the first thing that some of the priorities that you work on once you gain your corporate freedom?
From my corporate life perspective, I really wanted to fully roll out the MarTech strategy, and the content strategy for my corporate employer at the time. So these are some of the things that I really wanted to check off the list. But of course, let's say if you ask me honestly, if the retrenchment did not happen, would I have just continue and just throw the letter? For sure. I might wait a few more months. I might have waited a few more months. I might not have done it immediately, as to that. In all honesty, I would have back then that me would still be a little bit apprehensive, a little bit conservative, and say, oh, I want to make sure I'm really, really financially very, very, very secure, We will always have that, right? Maybe I buy a few more months, that I might have dragged it out. So if you want my very honest answer, yes. So then when that hit, of course I see it as, I was very shocked, and of course I was also disappointed, because everybody like to think, hey, it cannot be me, right? After that I've done for you guys, like really seriously. But then I also learned during that time, I did have a corporate client coming to me, and saying that because they have been hearing me speak in marketing conferences, so then they contacted me and say, hey, I see that you offer some freelance service on the side. We are very curious about what you can do for us. So would you be open to explore, have a conversation? So back then, honestly, I didn't have anything ready. I was still toying with the idea, right? So I had no materials, nothing, just my own thoughts. So I took it as like things falling into place, said it as that falling into place, because that corporate client came to me at the same time the retrenchment hit. So everything was hitting me all at once, and that kind of really then forced me to consolidate everything in my head into a written format. So the written format meaning I had to do up my microsite. I had to do up my pitch deck. Over the weekend, while I was kind of still very sad, but very sad with the
Tears dropping
retrenchment. I
on
was
your
like,
keyboard.
like crying internally, crying, and okay, I need to do this.
I've seen many of such stories as well, as we are both in the same fractional circle. I mean, honestly, Singapore fractional circle not big lah. A lot of people who are aspiring to do what we do, and in your particular case, the stars are indeed somewhat aligned. Not by choice, but it does align after all. And of course, the fact that there are some interest at the very beginning that had been very helpful. And you were saying that came from your past speaking engagement. They have seen you spoke and all that. Was that something that you did intentionally when you started doing speaking, or was it something that you just have to do because it comes with your job?
I think, come to think of it, I think I did it intentionally. Maybe subconsciously, I was kind of put out there. Because in corporate, you've been in corporate before. Actually, they can be quite regimental with the rules as to how who
Yeah.
can you need 1,000 papers
Corpcom
and
always say
approvals
cannot
before
one.
you
I always tell people Corpcom has the best job.
but
Everything they do is just to say no.
they just say no, right? But I guess I'm a little bit rebellious. We'll just do first and answer later. That's how because I ultimately I know that I'm very clear that I'm speaking in my own capacity and I always make it as such. And I know I will not jeopardize the company's reputation and whatsoever. And how I position it is that it's actually in their favor because it shows that the company is forward looking. So, but I'm doing it purely, I guess, to prepare myself, to build my own profile a little bit more because I do know that we cannot keep falling back on our corporate titles. And for one day, I know I will want to have my own business. It's just that when.
I really love that part about one day you can no longer fall back onto your former title because if you go LinkedIn, you always see a lot of people, right? Ex-Amazon, ex-Microsoft, constantly falling back on the good old days, so to speak. Yeah, but like you said, there will come a
Yeah.
time where that ex or former title would just no more juice to squeeze lah.
Especially if that company is no longer
Oh
in
yeah,
favor. That's
exactly.
even worse.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
And
But-
I also want to understand next. Then you had, of course, that engagement that came in. Have you more or less already cemented your offering, or are you still trying to experiment and see what works?
I had more or less cemented. And then, of course, later on, I evolve it a little bit more. But the core offering,
How has it
yes.
differed so far? What
Right
was
then,
it like during day one and until today?
I've been very clear because I had 2 years to think about it. That's more than enough. Is that I am a marketing consultancy. I'm not a marketing agency. The difference, I would say very bluntly, is a marketing agency tend to be still a little bit more executional and very channel specific. Usually you find them maybe specialized in digital marketing, PR, media, and so on. Whereas for me, I see as a marketing consultancy a little bit more integrated. We can do strategy all the way to execution. So end to end in that sense. Then the other differentiator is because of my experience, I'm able to cover both B2B and B2C, which is quite rare versus other firms out there, even if they are marketing consultancy. And then I think the third pillar is actually the MarTech part, which because also my experience, I'm able to provide MarTech advisory service and audit review. So that bridges a little bit more into the consultancy part because there comes an element of change management as well. So it becomes a little bit more hybrid into the consultancy world. Yeah. So, and what has evolved and what has changed is also by a force of nature because as I progress with clients, they start asking for more. It is the whole, I would have to say, the generative AI part of the work where they start asking about how to explore what should they even be exploring these capabilities. Yeah, and I'm not a Gen AI expert. That's why I don't want to put AI in my job title for the sake of it. Like I see so many out there, like just put AI, then you become an expert. No, I am not an AI expert, but I understand the concept. I understand the framework and the limitations. So I have genuine Gen AI tech solution partner that I work with and that have contacted me this year to work with them to help our clients at the enterprise level to use AI responsibly. Yeah, so that part has evolved, and I can see that it will continue to evolve.
So as a roundup, could you help us to understand what's the different weightage of your business like? So you mentioned the consultancy bit. How many percent is on consultancy? Are you also spending a percentage on other fractional work, so on and so forth?
Yeah. So somewhat ironically, it started more consultancy with the first client. So it started becoming like 60% consultancy last year. Then towards the tail end, it shifted a little because then I started getting more marketing, typical marketing type work, campaign type work. So now I would say it's about 50-50.
So 50% on the consultancy bit and 50% more on the
Marketing, like traditional marketing, where they want to do, for example, activation
okay.
events. They want to go to market
I
with a
see.
campaign.
But those are still very much on a
Yeah.
project level.
Still on a
I
project
see.
level.
Okay. Are you on any fractional scope right now or fractional assignment?
The way I see is that we are on a fractional assignment with these clients because we, like, for example, let's say my banking client is still a client as of today. They are going to launch something in Singapore. It's not going to launch yet, but I can't share too much, but it's coming very soon. So so I have a team of 2 people working with me on that to curate a launched event. So that would be for that project coming like ending in May, for example. But myself with the same client, it will stretch all the way continuously throughout because my change management project is still going on with them. So that's the difference, like my fractional part versus the project part
see.
of
Okay.
the work. Yeah.
Understand. And could you also then help us understand about the earlier days? Of course, you have that one project and all. Then you created your own website, etc., etc. But I'm very certain how you perceive it before you started would be very different when the rubber hits the road. Could you walk us through some of the
Yeah.
earlier days challenges that you face, expectedly and unexpectedly?
Yeah, so the ability to scale on my own, that was a challenge, a real challenge last year, honestly. Uh, because I'm not an established, seasoned entrepreneur, right? In that sense, like who have owned multiple businesses before. So then I find that I had to really be my own CEO, CMO, CFO, and the concept of being a CEO, like something that I'm still grappling with. Like when people ask, so you're the founder, so you're the CEO. Then I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, actually it's true. I am still don't have that mindset that I'm still trying to come to terms with it. And then of course because I am bootstrapped, I'm not taking loans. I'm not raising funds unlike some startups where they own the technology, they raise funds. But my nature of business, I start from ground zero, start with my own financial means, which means then I need to be very careful where I'm spending my money as well. I have to walk the talk from a marketing perspective. I need to choose, should I invest in PR? What events should I invest in? What partnerships should I spend my time and effort in? Should I do what kind of BD work should I be doing? So honestly, I did trust some of the wrong partners. Last year, I did invest in the wrong events, and I found that it was a waste of money. So that's, to me, is a lesson learned. But I try to see the positive side of it. Like for example, that there was still contacts established. The worst case scenario, they are added to my mailing list. You know, even though they are not buying anything, but they are added to my mailing list. It's still something. So this year, I made a resolution to myself to be a little bit more careful with where I'm spending my time and my resources. And I am investing a little bit more into PR, proactive PR. That's one. I am more cautious as to the events I'm sponsoring that I want to participate in. And then I am investing in a little bit more on the business development side, on lead generation. Yeah. So that's my how I
Yeah,
pivot.
that sounds a lot of investment. I mean, contrast to many of the solopreneur or fractional people that I know out there who generally depend a lot on word of mouth and word of mouth only. to get whatever business that they have. But having said that, of course, it is really how you invest the right resources to make it work. And in this particular case, this podcast would not have happened if not for your PR agency as well. So
Yeah,
kudos to them.
I believe
Yeah,
in
I
PR
do
is
want to
good.
also get your take on something. Because within this space, you and I are in the same fractional group. We've seen a lot of people who are aspiring to become what we are doing right now. And a lot of them actually have similar background like yourself. Former whatever big company name lah, big household name that you've heard of. And I personally have been to a few of those meetups. If I have to recollect every single one of the people that I met with, I think every single one of them are either looking for a job right now or have gone back to a job. The notion of starting something on their own was there, it was expressed, but then it just fizzled out. And it seems to be quite
Mm.
getting more and more of that. Oh, have you seen similar phenomenon, and what's your take on that?
I think not everybody is suitable for entrepreneurial life to be a business owner. And I've observed personally, because I've spoken to a few as well, and they kind of told me very bluntly too that they, like, as soon as they find a job, they will give up their fractional. They will, because to be fair, of course, some of that is because they are here, for example, they cannot be here permanently. They might be dependent on passes, and if they don't get a full-time job, they can't sustain, or they're also worried about job security on the whole, like the whole economic situation. So then that I understand. But some where I think, to be honest, if it's either you are in or you're out, for the fractional work. It's either you really are committed, you set up an entity to be fair to your client, or you just don't. Because I've had some clients coming to me only because they had somebody who abandoned, fractional person abandoned them. Then they say they come to me, okay, because you have an entity, you will run away, right? So I say, yeah, true.
Oh, so that's a good
So
pro
that's
tip
why
for
I
people who wants to start. You must have a private limited first before anything else.
you should have at least a business entity. Yes. I think it's, to be fair, I mean, and accountable, right? Like, if we really want to build a name for ourselves and a reputation for all the fellow fractional people who are serious about this path, I think everybody should kind of show that commitment. If you want our clients to be committed, you have to be as committed as well. It's a two-way
Yeah,
street.
100% agree, which is also why I decided to stop going for those meetup, because as much as people are keen to hear from my experience, and I'll be very happy to share with them my learnings, my mistakes and all that, but I feel like it's a wasted lesson. I watch Netflix, maybe it's a better use of time, rather than telling you something that you never make use of, because end of the day, you decide to go back to corporate.
Yeah, I guess the corporate title or the corporate security, the pay is just too attractive, maybe.
So to your time management, because we started off with you working throughout the day because it's COVID, no day, no night. And I do understand being your own boss, there's I heard this saying, when you are working for yourself, it's two character combined. The world's most demanding manager combined with the world's laziest employee. And usually the
Yes.
manager win lah. So given that you are your own boss
Yes.
right now, how do you make sure that you don't self-impose burnout?
Yeah, that's a very good point, actually. Um, I do fully agree on the whole, like, you are the worst, your own worst manager. This is very true. So I do try to take designated time off, like block off time on my own calendar very consciously, where I will absolutely not take any calls, I will just focus on myself. So usually this is like maybe on a Friday afternoon. I will try to do that. And then consciously I make it a point to try not to work. I say try because I honestly I haven't quite succeeded. Just to put it out there. I try not to work on weekends to really fully focus on my family. Sunday for sure is fully family day. Saturday right now I'm struggling a little bit sometimes. When the projects really crop up, I will still set aside maybe 2 hours just to fully focus on the work, and then after that, like just done for the day. Yeah, so that's kind of how I manage. But unfortunately, for the holidays where I book trips, I sometimes find that I still have to bring my work along, my work laptop along. But then I would come to a compromise with myself and my family, saying, okay, morning we'll spend 2 hours just on my laptop clearing whatever, and then the rest of the day I'm totally off, like I'm totally free. I'm yours, you know. Yeah, so that's the kind of compromise.
Personally,
Yeah.
same thing. Every time I travel, laptop lah,
Mm.
iPad lah, basically your work equipment lah, has to go with you, no choice one.
Yeah.
So some of the things that I also did try before. Initially, I was telling myself, okay, Friday is no laptop day. Yeah, no laptop. Yes, become iPad day. So there's always this other concession that I make for myself. But something that I've learned, which seems to be quite useful, is especially if you can go out to a cafe and work. Don't bring your charger.
Mm.
Because if you bring
That's
your
a good
charger,
point. Yeah.
never end one until the Starbucks close, then you are off. But if you don't bring your charger, right, battery no more.
True.
And also there's the Parkinson law that kicks in. If you're given 8 hours, you will take 8 hours. But if you're given 2 hours, you will only take 2 hours.
True. Yeah, that's a good point actually. I'll take your advice on that one.
And let's go back to what you're currently doing right now. You mentioned about the consultancy bit. Can you also share with us some of the other project highlights that you're working on, perhaps for audience who may even have such requirements on their end to know more about some of the services that you do offer?
Right now we are scoping out a project to help them with their entire MarTech stack. Yeah. So MarTech stack meaning that they wanted to find a way to look at the data that is being collected on their offline channel, physical retail stores, all the way to their online e-commerce store. It's always disconnected because they don't have the right technology platform to integrate both. Yeah, so and also they are curious about what their non-customers are saying because they are not doing any social listening. So that's kind of how I'm approaching it currently, looking at how we can help them to integrate all the different data touch points, recommend some social listening tools so that they are tracking all the sentiments the brand mentions, as well as measuring how they are competing against their competitors in that space. And then with that, we will eventually also dovetail into looking at some of the generative AI capabilities that can be plugged on top of their data platform to help them with business intelligence. So business intelligence meaning like they can also do prompting like, oh, what is my sales forecast for this coming month? You know, just by typing out with the AI assisted search, they can get that quite easily based on pulling all the data from things like Excel sheet, PDF documents, Word documents. We are able to do that with the generative AI application. So we are in the midst of scoping out and building this out for them.
How do you even get a client
And
from Myanmar to begin with?
lead generation. Yeah, that's why I do believe in
So just
that.
to expand a
Um,
bit on that, this lead gen is a services that you pay and they help you to acquire. So
Yeah.
basically your outsourced BDR lah.
Yeah. And I mean, I know a lot of people rely on referrals. The reason why I don't want to solely rely on referrals as well is I don't want to become like a little like a pet, like bugging my network for business. I guess I'm a bit thin-skinned, like I feel a bit bad if I just keep mugging people for business that way. So and also sometimes it gets a little bit sensitive when you work with friends, because some can be friends, but when they become a client, it becomes a little bit complex relationship. Yeah, so I do try not to. But that said, another project that I'm working on right now, which is going to launch very soon, actually came from a friend's friend, you know. And that's actually an art exhibition that will be helping her to market, launching in Singapore on the 23rd of April. And that one I'm personally very excited. And I don't treat her like a client per se, but more like a friend in that sense. And what she is doing is very meaningful.